Welcome to another edition of the Final Percent Podcast, and I have got a good friend of mine, Seth from Flow Chiropractic. We're going to dive in, we're going to go there today. We're going to go into business stuff, what we're doing in TFP stuff. I want to start off by talking a little bit just so that people can understand the importance of chiropractic and specifically your philosophy behind it. I think that's really the differentiating factor that happens when we are working through things like, for instance, my company, The Final Percent. The reason why people gravitate or come to The Final Percent for a specific reason is our philosophy around how we get the growth. Now, that is that, variable, that X factor, if you will. And when I heard you explain chiropractic, when I heard you talk about the flow side of things, we realized that, we were so aligned. And so I'd love to have you talk about, why are you passionate about chiropractic? What do you love about it? What is your philosophy? And then, your wife's also a chiropractor. This is something that is in every fiber of your being.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about chiropractic in general and then your specific philosophy.
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you, TFP and Greg, for having me on the podcast here. I'm super excited. I think chiropractic is a massive part. It's how my wife and I met. It's how I live. It's how I move. Chiropractic to me is the way of life, is a natural way of healing, seeing the body, seeing how we move through this world and we experience everything that it is around us. And for me, chiropractic is a lot more than just neck, back pain, and headaches. And a lot of times that's what people think is the main thing that chiropractors take care of. And it's so much more than that. We experience our world through our nervous system. And if there's any disconnection or miscommunication between our brain, our body, and how we're connected to the world around us, now we're living a more diminished life. And for me, it's about connecting people back to the essence of them and the essence of what it means to live more life per moment and how we can continually increase that presence per moment. Within chiropractic, that goes back to the nervous system. And like I said, it's how we move through the world. It's how we experience our world. We experience thoughts, toxins, traumas, all our senses. All of that information is being moved in through our system by our nervous system. And like I said, if there's any miscommunication in that, then we're living a lower or less than expressive lifestyle. So for me, it's getting in there and getting to the root cause of where that information, energy may be stuck. I know one thing that I told Greg when we first met was, pain is the last thing to show up. We behave and move through our world in certain patterns and behaviors, and those patterns then eventually create compensation patterns, disconnection, to where we now have to move through that, and that can eventually manifest as pain. And so when that pain shows up, now we want to take care of something. And so if I can help somebody create a better pattern, more sustainable patterns, and create a better connection to their body, to their brain, all those types of things, now pain also leaves, and we're not just directing our focus and our intention on the pain. We now create more ease, less stress in the body as a whole, and now pain starts to fall off. We feel more connected to ourselves. We feel more connected to the world around us, our relationships, our family, our friends, our work, those types of things. And when we feel more connected to those, we feel we can do more, we can be more, and we can express more. So that's, long story short, long story long.
That was great. So some of the bullet points that I would love to just make sure that people are either writing down or made aware of, because, he dropped a bunch of, gems in there. we experience through our nervous system. A lot of people don't think that way. They don't understand. You help people connect. You connect people back to them. Like, that's incredible. I love the phrase presence per moment. One of the things I've been saying recently is you never know how important a moment was until it becomes a memory. Mm-hmm. Therefore, if we increase our presence per moment, we can be aware of these incredible things that are happening right in front of us, and we don't have to look back and be like, man, I wish I would have been more present. Mm-hmm. I love that. Pain is the last thing to show up. And that's in everything. Like, it's in your business. Yep. It's in your marriage. It's in your physical. It's in spiritual. It's in your mental. And so we've got to run maintenance on these things. And that's this interconnected approach that, the Final Percent has with the infinity model. And if you watch the infinity model, it's like being in a state of flow. Yeah. And so that's fantastic. Understanding and directing patterns. I love that. So I'm doing this thing called the Infinity Vlog now, just to kind of help people understand, what do I do in a day to, accomplish certain things. And one of the things we talked about on the first one, like, there's a reason why I have my stationary bike sitting right there, so that I don't have an excuse. Yes. And there's a reason why a lot of times I'll order in my meals so that I don't have an excuse. Like, oh man, I accidentally ate 9 bowls of chili. You know what I mean? I have to design my life, design my space for productivity, for presence, for awareness, so that the pain doesn't have a opportunity to take root. Yeah. Because oftentimes we live in a very symptomatic state where we just are reacting to symptoms. Yes. And therefore we're just running in circles. Yes. And so when you were talking about the chiropractic approach that you take, I was just like, man, this is so much deeper than chiropractic.
Big time.
So one of the things that I think is always fun to ask, where do you see Flow Chiropractic in a decade? Yeah. Where do you see it?
That's an amazing question. And it's an interesting question at this phase of my life, because there are some current chapters that are moving up in the book. And so right now, Flow Chiropractic is in Denver, is in the Rhino neighborhood, and in 10 years, I really see Flow being a place for young chiropractors, for myself, a place where people can come and learn, one, about flow, the flow code, the flow model, how we see the body, how we see the nervous system, and how chiropractic can really increase somebody's life expression and how they move through the world. But like, not necessarily a revolving door, but a place that somebody can come and learn and be and express themselves as a human, as a chiropractor, as a family person, whatever that looks like, in a space that, one, is cool. The vibes are top notch.
The vibes are top notch. Vibes are top notch.
And that's why I picked Rhino, and that's why I picked Flow, and that's why the space was curated very specifically for that, and based on my personality. But it's also very clean and simple. And so just to continue to grow Flow's reach within the Denver community, but also like a place, like I said, where people can come, grow, and take what they've learned and what they need to know, and who they need to be to become the chiropractor and person that they want, and take it to other cities and places like that. And so I think that's where, because it's in its infancy now, and I think as it grows, that can be something really special in 10 years.
That's so great. So there's a lot of people, obviously, who are not necessarily going to be able to go to see you in Rhino because they live in Canada. Yeah. So give us your top 3 things on how to pick a chiropractor.
Absolutely.
If you go into a chiropractor, are there like specific red flags where you're like, whoa, not doing that?
Yes, absolutely. I would say, number one, the first thing that pops in my mind is if you walk in there and it looks like a doctor's office.
Yeah.
If it looks like a place where you would normally go for any Western type of medicine, I guess. And so if the chiropractor is wearing a white lab coat and carrying a clipboard and has a stethoscope, and I only say that there's nothing wrong with, if that's your current chiropractor, there's nothing wrong with that. Chiropractic works and it's an amazing thing. The intention behind that is my next piece, because when you walk in and you see that they're thinking reactionary, they're thinking very Western minded, because it's, you walk in with a problem, they have the solution and they're trying to fix it. That's not anything that we're trying to do. We're facilitating the body to express healing in the way that it's naturally meant to do. And so I would ask those types of questions. What's your philosophy? There's mechanistic versus vitalistic. Vitalistic is more the power that made the body heals the body, and allowing the body to heal from the inside out. And instead of this outside-in approach of I'm here to fix you, it's about empowering you to heal yourself. And there's in your system just needs the help, right? And so those are some really important things. And I would also trust your gut. If you go in somewhere and, there's chiropractors on every block in most cities, don't feel attached to go, I'm not the best chiropractor for everybody. Yeah. I wish that I was, and just as TFP may not be for everybody. But so feel it out. Go in there and trust your gut, and if it doesn't feel right, or that person doesn't treat you with the respect that you feel that you deserve in that moment, because your system is a very sacred and divine, and it deserves to be honored and respected in anything. And if you feel that is any way violated, do not continue to go see them. There's always a way out. It's not a thing that you have to be a part of. So I think that's very important. Very, very important. And just like anything, any relationship, that's a relationship, and but they're interacting with your nervous system, and so that should be held with some reverence as well.
Reverence, so, yeah. I love that word too, reverence. So let's talk about, before we get into some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, what is the next big domino for Flow? So we talked about the 10-year.
Yeah.
What's the next, like within, by the end of the year? I mean, it's December 4th.
Yeah, I would say the next piece for Flow is bringing another chiropractor into the space. One, I think that, again, it's a beautiful space to be a chiropractor, and so as Flow continues to grow, there's plenty of room on the week schedule to continue to take care of. I can't take care of everybody, so to have somebody else in there that can also take care of the community and more of Denver, then yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So
all right, so my next one, and this might be controversial, but I've always wondered this, and I love asking the potentially hard questions. I love just doing them on camera.
Yeah.
So your wife's also a chiropractor.
Yes.
But she has a separate practice.
Yes.
Do you have different philosophies, and why, if so?
Of course. This is what a great question. The simple answer is no, we don't.
Okay.
Our philosophies, and that's what people have always said. When I talk about my wife being a chiropractor as well, we grew up in chiropractic, went to chiropractic school, but there's two ways to go through chiropractic school: just straight through school, or you can find seminars, things that resonate best with you. And we found similar things that resonated with us, and she has a very similar philosophy in how we see the system, and as women usually do, she has a much more elegant and beautiful way of putting things, and I'll usually steal those things and, of explaining our philosophy. And so probably I would say 45 to 60% of what I just said is credited to her. So
good.
But she's in how we see chiropractic and how we see the body is very similar, and the language that you'll hear and the words and the verbiage is very similar in what we do and how we present chiropractic. She's also 5'2", and I'm 6'3", and so that's what we always say is our philosophy is very similar and very much the same, but our application is a little bit different.
So next question, which is interesting, is there a reason to see both of you?
For sure.
So like go to you one week and then go see her another week. Okay,
absolutely.
That's cool.
And like I said, the application is a lot different, and so she allows, and I'll say it this way, is, you know, after the adjustment, there's an integration. There's where this vibration and that frequency and that's the energy that was transferred into the system has to do something. And so that integration can take place on the table, in the office, and you may find a chiropractor that you're there for 30, 40 minutes, and that's more her style, is you're integrating things on the table in between people, in between adjustments. And the way that I have grown up through chiropractic is that the integration piece is more on the person. And so you'll be in the office for less time in my space than in her space. And so with that, there's a little bit, and I've done a lot of work to keep the presence, and you don't feel like you're rushed in and out.
Yeah.
And so there is places like that. There's chiropractors that are like that. And again, nothing
Shout
wrong
out
with
Joint.
that. Yes, where
You guys suck, just so you know. Like, I tried that. It's not cool.
I would say there's good chiropractors there, because a lot of times it's like a landing pad for chiropractors. But overall, you get what you pay for.
That's true. Not much.
Yes. And so, yes, that is a model where you're more kind of churn and burn in people, and again, the intention's different. And so
Yeah.
with me adjusting side by side with my wife, you're going to see two different applications of chiropractic, but our intention is the same.
Yeah.
And hers is just more of a feminine approach. Yes, we both, we have both pieces in all of us.
Yeah.
And mine is more obviously heavier as far as the efficiency and moving through, and the integration is more your responsibility. So there's a huge benefit, and I've thought about that a lot. Is like people that see me, I'm like, you would also do amazing with my wife as well.
Yeah, so that's so good. Yeah, that's such a great. All right, last one on chiropractic, just because these are fun to ask, like when we're on the spot, and then just so you guys know, like the reason I have my notebook is I was writing down talking points to make sure you guys heard awesome stuff. Like there was no, like, I'm asking these questions. I did not send him, hey, just so you know, this is what we're talking about today. This is what's going on. This is just two buddies sitting down talking about things that they like. And I think that those kinds of interviews are better because they're less rehearsed. Yeah. Okay, so last question. This is totally selfish on my part. So with where you're at in chiropractic, one thing I have always gone through, and I don't know where it comes from. I got X-rays from another chiropractor, and he said that everything looks fine. But it's something I've worked on for so long. At some point throughout my day, this happened last night, my lower back will just lock up with so much pain to where I can't move. Yeah. What do you think it is?
It could be a number of things, and with something as specific as that's why it's important to have an initial exam per se. That's where we really will gather more information to build a bigger picture of, okay, this is what you've experienced up until this point. Mm-hmm. Where in that experience may have this energy gotten stuck, this pattern. Now everything, like I said, pain is the last thing to show up, and so we've behaved ourselves into certain patterns, and now there's a certain trigger in your system that is bringing that back up. Yeah. And so that could be something as one, selfishly, right? Just get adjusted. And I know you've told me before that the one time I did adjust you, that didn't happen. Yeah. And so, but with that, like there's also, in how I see chiropractic as well, is there's a physical piece, a mental piece, an emotional piece, and a spiritual piece. All of that is information that, like, somebody could have flipped you off 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and that information didn't move through the system, and now it's stuck somewhere, and you've created a compensation pattern around that stuck energy. And until you've dealt with that or allowed it to move through the body in some fashion, and there's many beautiful ways to do that. Chiropractic is one of them, at least how I see it.
Yeah.
And because I could adjust the same thing all day long and it still wants to creep back until we've dealt with something that the energy or the emotional piece or the spiritual piece or whatever that may look like.
Yeah.
It's always gonna, that pattern and that that resonance is still gonna be
Yeah,
there.
and I'll tell you guys, the work that Seth does is truly impeccable. We had a really good summit down in my basement. We have a summit there once a year. He came in, and like you probably have your table in your car right now, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Of course.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, he's always ready. And so he just offered. He said, "Hey, do you want me to grab it, and I can just adjust a few people?" And people definitely took advantage of it, and they're loving it. And so I got on the table, not knowing what to expect, because I've had good adjustments and bad adjustments, and it was the best adjustment I've ever had. Like,
Thank you.
if I was in Denver more, I would literally see this dude every single time I'm down there. So I just I can't co-sign for him enough as a human being, as his philosophy, as the work that he does, and he's always trying to make himself better instead of resting on your laurels, because you're good at what you do. Like, that.
Yeah.
But you're always trying to get better.
Yeah.
And that's the sign of a true master, is one that never says, I'm a master, but stays a student. And that's something like every time I talk to you, you're in the middle of some new idea or a new book, or you had this idea. And so much so that we, you joined our what was our mastermind, now our Infinity Club.
Yes.
And so we're working on your business, we're working on life really together.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea, if you don't know and I'm not going to get into the story, there's a really good story that will help you guys understand what the final percent is if you don't know what it is. But it revolves around an experience I had where I was watching the total eclipse in Casper, Wyoming. And this guy joins our Infinity Club, and he says, "Oh, BT Dubs, I've got 120 acres in Oklahoma, and if we want to throw our event that we're going to watch, and we're going to bring out some heavy hitter speakers. Now, just so you guys know, it's not for the faint of heart, because you're going to have to either bring a tent or your own camper."
Yes.
Because we're going to be out in the middle of nowhere to watch this thing, but we're going to bring generators and power. Yes. We're going to have a stage. We're going to have lights, the speakers. It's going to be a transformative experience. But he says, I just happen to have this 120 acres, and the eclipse is going right over it. Now, if you don't understand how rare that is, yes. Basically the eclipse is it covers 2 miles wide, and it travels across the country. So you have to be in a very specific spot.
Yes.
And so he joins, and he didn't even fully understand, because we met each other at a different conference, so he didn't really know what the final percent was, didn't understand that the eclipse was there. So it's not like I knew he had this property and he knew it just had to happen. We had 2 other members, Gunther, shout out Gunther. His son was born on my son's birthday, and then Brigham, another member, his son was born on my son's birthday.
Crazy.
We're supposed to be together, y'all. It's obvious.
Yes.
And so what we started talking about is, because we were originally going to do it in Arkansas, that's way further away, and we were trying to figure out the logistics of how many people. And the great thing is if people don't want to show up, okay, fine. Like that's fine. You have to really want to be there. Yeah. And so the worst thing about running events is renting out the hotel and getting the food and doing all of these things, and then 8 people show up. Yeah. So it's so he's just well, I've got this. What if we do it together? Yeah. So talk me through a little bit about what was your thought process with your wife, of course, because we just had an awesome meeting with you and your wife, where we're putting down the planning. ordering in the porta potties,
Yes.
doing all of this stuff with hand washing stations. We talked about this. We were like, how many times do you go to a festival or you go to an outdoor thing, you see all the porta potties lined up, and there's no place to wash your hands. And we're
Just the sanitizer. That's it.
Yes,
that are always empty.
Yeah, that are always. We're gonna go the final percent on hygiene, guys. Come on. So, but it's like that. I think that's the other thing that people don't understand is when you're planning an event, like down to like hand soap. We had to make that decision.
Yes.
Down to did we get enough of them? Did we rent like enough generators? Like how do we get someone like Sharon Lecter to like come stay in a camper to come like talk in the middle of Oklahoma? Like what are the logistics on that, you know? So these are things that happen, but for these conversations to start, you had to raise your hand and say, by the way, I have this property and I would love to figure out how to run the thing together.
Yes.
You know, what made you and your wife want to, number one, be a part of it, and then number two, say like, hey, we're going to run it with you? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. One, it came from originally was the feeling and the, I guess, attraction that I originally had with you, Greg, and what you stand for and your principles, your philosophy, TFP as a whole. And when I originally heard that story, I just was like, I'm in. Like, I've had some experiences with coaches and people in this realm before, and it just has not been the same. And I know you talk a lot about that. And, you know, as I'm different in chiropractic, you are very different in this space as well. And I'm very, very grateful for our connection and everything that has led up to us meeting. And there's been so many coincidences and synchronicities.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because I don't believe in the coincidence of that. Everything's just really fallen into place and flowed very nicely together. And so that piece was an easy decision to say, you know, Greg has, you know, the whole story behind TFP, and then, you know, the story with us coming into this land. You know, originally it was we're in the path of totality. Last time my uncle was, which is kind of wild to think now, over in Oregon, he was in the path, and he sold parking spaces, campsites on his land, and so that was our first thought, was like, let's just provide space, because originally we thought we had heard that there's going to be like 1 million people coming to this small town, and if this place is, I mean, the town probably has 5,000 people in it, and there's 2 roads in and out. 1 million people, that is so much. Cabins are full, hotels are full. Turns out it's not that many people, but we were like, this is gonna be huge. We're gonna sell so much on the property, and then come find out that Grandma she's all on board for that piece, but also wants to sell the land because she has more up the street. And then it just came into this thing of, this is what we've always wanted. And so we offered it up to her to essentially take it off her hands. And so that's how we came into it. And then around that same time is when we had that conversation, and it just made sense to offer that up, just knowing our connection and knowing how much fun we have every time we get together, how much I enjoy spending time with you and all the whole crew and your family, and just wanting to amplify and really create something that the town not only talks about, but everybody to come really talks about.
Yeah.
So it was an easy choice to say, hey, here's this, let's do it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about community is, how often do you raise your hand to say, how can I help?
Yeah.
And I think that's something, you know, and it's really the little things. Like, a lot of people, I think, pay way too much attention to grand gestures, but they don't recognize how much more rare little gestures are. And so a great example of this, I'm going to give 2 examples. In our group, TFP, there is a thing going around where we will say, I love you more ad nauseum. And to be clear, it's not I love you more than you love me, it's I love you more than anything that can ever come between us. Because love shouldn't be circumstantial. And so every single time Seth and I see the meme on Instagram of an I love you more kind of anything, we will send it to each other. Like, it happens. So the fact that, excuse me, the fact that we have that, and he, like, there was another a thing that said, like, get so comfortable saying I love you to your friends that, like, people think it's weird. And, like, we were texting each other, we're like, yeah, we're good at this. Like, mission accomplished.
Yes.
So those little things where it's literally just like I was thinking of you. A lot of people know on here I'm a massive fan of Jeep kind of anything. And he showed up today and he gave me a little Hot Wheels Jeep. Like, he was looking through and he's saying, you know, me and my granddad used to look at Hot Wheels and this, that, and the other. I saw this one and, you know, I had to get it and I wanted to bring it to you. And that means more to me, honestly, than even your hand in the air saying, hey, let's run an event together. Because it's those little things that you don't have to do.
Yeah.
Because running an event, as hard as it is, yes, it's sacrifice of time and energy and resources, but, you know, we're all business people, and you know, let's just be honest, it's fun to be the guy.
Yeah.
If you're the guy that's putting on the thing, even if it's stressing you out, it's fun to be the guy.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy the Hot Wheel.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not expected. It's not needed. There's no, like, unless we were doing a podcast today, no one would have probably ever known but me. And it's not like in the talking points, he was like, make sure you talk about that Hot Wheel, bro. It's being around a community where the little things become the big things.
Right.
And putting more presence in the moment. And I think, you know, there's so many things when he was first talking to me about his philosophy about chiropractic, I realized that's my philosophy about personal growth. And chiropractic is just realistically, it's personal growth. It's because he has a business in it. He has to figure those things out. It has vitality. There's a community. It's very personal for him. So with our infinity model, he has that intertwined into his philosophy. And everyone does once you're made aware of this. And this is something that we really want to help people with. And vitality, having your healing come from inside, like you said. Yeah. And I loved what you said about that is, you know, and I take that, you know, I call it the Yoda approach or the Mr. Miyagi approach. I frustrate my clients all the time because oftentimes I will ask a question with or answer a question with a question, and then I will get them to get to the answer. Yeah. Because if I just told you, hey, like, just crack your back like this, like, and listen to what he said I didn't pre-plan trying to make this happen. But when I asked him the question about, like, the frustrating thing with my lower back, he immediately asked me questions. Okay, well, I'd need to do a more comprehensive diagnosis. I need more data. I would need to do this. Because he didn't immediately say, oh, well, like, I can just, like, heal you. He's like, it can be a lot of things. I want to know more. I want to ask questions. I want to this. And then I have to decide, is chiropractic right for me? I have to decide if I show up. I have to decide, like, if fixing my lower back is important and we make progress, well, why don't I just drive my ass down to Denver? Like I got to put in the effort. You know, it's just the way it is. Because just so you know, concierge chiropractic is expensive. If I say, Seth, I need you to come up here 3 times a week, big guy, I better get my checkbook out. Like, we're homies, but I got to respect who he is. He goes like this because there's people who probably expect him to do stuff like that.
Absolutely.
This happens to be all the time because I get the conversation. People call me up. They're like, hey, let me take you out to coffee. And then they'll, like, talk to me for like an hour and a half about, like, life coaching them. And I'm just like, man, I can buy my own coffee. Yeah. Like, I would have rather you just said, like, I can't afford you. I really, really need help. And I probably would have done it.
For sure.
But because if someone calls you and they're like, dude, there's a 0% chance I can afford you. I have $6.14. You'd be like, cool. Yeah. Like, I got you.
Yeah, of course.
It's just you gotta base everything off honesty.
Yes.
And that's one of the things, you know, I talk about a lot is the idea of truth I think is very misleading. A lot of people go, oh, well, truth is the only thing that's important. And I actually completely disagree with that, because I'm a Christian, and I know a lot of people who are good friends of mine who are not Christian. They're either, maybe they're Jewish, maybe they're atheist, maybe they are just spiritual, whatever it is. But that's their truth. That doesn't make it any less their truth, and it doesn't make it any less my truth. Both of them are true. Yeah. So I agree with coming from an honest place, and I agree with coming from a sense of loyalty. And we actually talked about this in the Facebook group this morning. When you have to have someone's back, it's never in the easy moments. No. And that's the thing that I think is wrong with communities these days, is people are like, I got your back, I got your back, I got your back, until it gets hard. Yeah. Well, in the easy moment, I didn't need you to have my back. And that's the thing that I love having Seth in my life, because I know that he's got my back.
I do.
And that's just who we are. Yeah. That's the kind of community we are. And that's why we, are joining forces on this event. It's April 6th through 10th, I believe. The actual eclipse is on the 8th. And we're going to have, there's going to be food involved. If you are in the Infinity Club, it is absolutely free for you to attend. If you're interested in coming, there are different prices for the event, for parking an RV, and for parking a tent. But I can honestly tell you that the eclipse changed my entire life. And because I was willing to move, and what I mean is move my butt, my physical behind, and drive to Casper, because I was willing to move and experience this, I was able to change my entire life. It changed the entire trajectory of my life. And I've been able to help people with this concept, and we have a community now to where me moving changed hundreds, if not thousands, of other people. I'm with 2 chiropractors involved in this thing. I have a sneaking suspicion there's probably going to be tables there. Yes. So if nothing else, maybe you need to get an adjustment on your physical being, maybe your life, your mindset. But we're going to have a great time. We want you to come experience it with us. And just know that we're there to make a real impact. And the income, or the incoming thing that happens into your life is completely dependent upon you. It's going to be how you show up. And if you show up to say, how much can I get? How much can I get from this? I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to be much. If you show up, how much can I give? It literally is going to be exponential and monumental. And here's how I'll help you understand that. Imagine if I gave you a Christmas present. Christmas right around the corner, right? If I gave you a Christmas present, and let's say it's, 3 feet by 3 feet, and you're like, man, what could this be? And I hand this Christmas present to you, and it's wrapped beautifully, by the way.
Obviously.
Like grandma or mom did it. It's definitely not me. You open it up, and there's nothing inside. Would you kind of, you'd be curious, like, why? Why is this? Sure. This is how most people go to events. This is how most people go to community. They are an empty present just waiting for other people to put stuff in them. Oh. So you're not very fun to have in the community. Oh. But if you're the person that shows up in the community, whatever the size, it could be this size, it could be this size, doesn't matter. If you're the person that shows up in that community and you are always full of something to give, you are going to live a life so abundant, you're not going to know what to do with yourself. But most people have all the pretty wrapping paper, i.e. Lamborghinis, big house, talking this, talking that, accolades. But they're an empty box, and they are showing up trying to get people to put stuff in them and trying to receive. You have to be open to receiving, but the best way to be open to receiving is to know how to give. And so if I can give you anything, whether you're going to be a part of this community, you're coming to our event, or whether you are, you're a part of your local community or your local church or your family, ask yourself, when I show up, what kind of present am I? Am I waiting for people to pat me on the back and give me something? Or am I a present where every time I show up, people are wondering, what kind of magic am I going to bring to the table? So I invite you to bring the magic. And I'm telling you, we are not the magical part of your life. Believe it or not, you are the magical part of ours. We just want to have the opportunity to get to know you. So anything else that you want to talk about?
No.
How do we find Flow Chiropractic? What's the website?
Yeah. It's flowchirodenver.com.
Flowchirodenver.com. What's your Instagram?
Is Flow Chiropractic, Flow.chiropractic, one of those two.
Flow. We'll tag it. We'll tag it in here for sure.
Yes.
But make sure you connect with him. He has incredibly educational stuff about his philosophy and chiropractic, and then also outside of chiropractic, he's just a fantastic human. And let's be honest, everyone needs more Seths in their life. Wow, that's hard to say. Yeah. Seths in their life. Wow, that's difficult. But thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for coming all the way up here.
Thank you.
And man, this is just the beginning.
Happy to be here.
All right, my brother.